Hey there, Internet, how's it going again? I am your boy John from Jon Graves Show, and I'm back again with another video about my top 5 of the new year of 2013, or before we transition over to 2014, where we continue the animes that most likely started this year, and then we carry them over to the next year. So wait, what animes that I think were pretty much the best and the ones that most likely kind of got the point across better than most? Well, hey, I am here to most likely give you my list of those things and most likely move them along. Now, mind you, I don't have paper with like the numbers on them, or at least I still do, but they have different names on them from the game. So most likely, right now, I'm just gonna use my little fingers here and go ahead and list those off for you. So yeah, coming up right now, number 5, or better yet, number 6. We have a little anime called Strike the Blood. Most likely a pretty interesting and pretty fan servery. A pretty good show that has a lot of fan service in it. I was trying to find an interesting way to put it, but yeah, it's a show that has a lot of fan service in it. It's pretty interesting in terms of they have their main character. He has his powers because he's the strongest person in the show. It's just a lot. It has a lot of fan service in it, and most likely the main character. This is possibly the only anime in which that I've watched in which that the main character really doesn't have a lot of say-so in like what happens to him. Most likely it's like a lot of the stuff that kind of happens, it could still happen. It's just that he wouldn't be there. Now you could argue that he is the deciding factor. However, give or take with that, a lot of this stuff he sort of just stumbles onto and nobody really comes after him. However, that's a personal thing, but yeah, this show is still pretty good and it's still something that you should check out and watch. Moving on to number 5, for real this time. For number 5, we have a really good anime which isn't supposed to be taken seriously. It isn't supposed to be your hitting home quaint story. It's most likely just a silly show that most likely it's just calling back the things of the 80s and 90s, stuff that we all grew up watching. And this show is called Kill la Kill. Most likely the show is just all about, you know, just quaint things, a good fight here and there, and the silliness of just, or at least like the silliness and the elevation of how one note each character is, minus the main character, who pretty much is kind of the only character who is aware of how silly everything is, and most likely that's kind of what makes her angry. You know, even going as far as the family that she's staying with is pretty much perverts in their own right, even because all the males there, most likely, even her best friend, who that man she lives with, who's basically her sister now, takes pictures of her when she sleeps and tries to sell them to people. Hey, that's a show that you can't take seriously, so I can't be angry at it. Moving on to number 4, a good show of mine, which that I've watched ever since its first inception of its first season, even going on to its second season, which was carried by a character who really wasn't even seen as the main character, but like one of the main side characters. I'm speaking of that amazing boxing show, Hajime no Ippo Rising, or The Fighting, or whatever the subtitle is. This series right here focuses on doing something right, of elevating a character from when he started and gained his title all the way to them taking some time off of him and talking about other characters gaining titles and getting title shots, or at least the other members of the gym. And this one, this one is talking about his fourth title defense against a person who most likely has all of the skills necessary and all of the know-how to most likely shut down his entire Dempsey Roll style, and also shut down his like infighting as a brawler and such. So yeah, that's all I'm leaving you with right now. So yeah, let's move on to number 3. Now Kuroko's Basketball is actually a good show, which honestly does pretty much paint basketball in a good light. Now, there is another show that kind of does it as well. It's called Slam Dunk. However, we're not talking about that right now. We are talking about the show that most likely knows what tone is, it knows what character development is, and also it knows pretty much that no matter what you can do, there's always a way to stop somebody. And honestly, this show has some of the best developed characters than any other anime that I've seen. Well, this year around anyway. Now, you could argue that like some of the other animes that pretty much, there are other animes that do it better. However, this year, Kuroko's Basketball has been doing something really, really good in terms of character development and pretty much elevating their characters and showing how they evolve over like a course of like months and months and months of training and practice and such. Which leads me to number 2. Beyond the Boundary is a show which I have to scratch my head at. Solely because reason why this one is number 2, because this is one of the animes which that the main character really kind of wasn't really doing anything all that much aside from really just trying to find his place in the world with him having as much power as he did. Most likely he was just one of those cool main characters who just tried to live his life from day to day, and most likely his friends, or at least some of his, or at least like the relatives of his friends were trying to attack him for reasons that he didn't know. Now, mind you that this show is solely about curses and most likely what you can expect from somebody based on like a lineage, and then you breaking that. Now, this show has a pretty good message, and the main character, even though we kind of didn't see him doing a lot of fighting, and most likely you saw the girl he liked doing way more combat and way more action heavy stuff. This show was not about the combat. It was about the story first, and kind of knowing where every character came from, and most likely understood that everything had consequences, and that some things needed to be checked. It had a pretty good message. And it is possibly my number 2, because I couldn't put Strike the Blood here because that show was really too wild for a lot of people. So yeah, let me get in. So yeah, before I get to number 1, let me get to some honorable mentions. Honorable mention number 2 is a show called Samurai Flamenco, a show in which that a model who thinks that he is a superhero goes around telling everybody that tries to make his city better by doing the right thing and trying to stand up for the people and everything. This was all fine and dandy until episode 8, in which that the show just turned into something completely different and turned into a strange version of Power Rangers or Kamen Rider or or something from the old Sentai shows. I'm like, what just happened? One minute we are beating up street thugs who most likely try to rob people, and then the next minute we are doing a drug bust in which that a guy snorts cocaine and then turns into a gigantic turns into a gigantic gorilla with a guillotine in his chest. Moving on to number 1. Sorry, numbers. Moving on to number 1 is a show that pretty much in its first few episodes, all the way up until they made the guild, pretty much kind of told me, yeah, this is going to be the best anime of May of 2013. Then it turned into something completely different, and it destroyed its tone, and most likely it turned into something in which that it just panders on and on and on and on. The show that I'm talking about is Log Horizon. A show in which that when it started and with its inception, it started out with 3 main characters. Now, don't even mind their level, seeing as that they are level 90 characters. It kind of did something in which that it told us the story through combat, made us like all of the characters because they all had their places, and most likely it was way more interesting to kind of see how like each one of their classes played a part in their personality and how they handled things and how they did things. And most likely it was pretty much a good way for us to like tell a story and most likely see villains and see them like going out, seeing other towns, meeting other players who most likely have gone evil, and then they try and stop them. I mean, all that was good for the first 5 episodes, and then it turned into something else that didn't live up to what to what they first showed me. Then it just turned into the most boring thing ever, or at the very least it just panders on and on and on and on about stuff that we already know. Now, before I repeat myself from the video that from the review that I made last or earlier this week, let me move on to, before the New Year's hits, let me move on to my number one anime of this year. It would have been Log Horizon. However, you gotta wonder, what was it? What was a show that didn't fall flat on its face and destroy everything that I liked in anime? Well, you know, in action anime anyway. And that was Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan was by far, as a lot of the people around the world will tell you, is by far the best anime. However, for me, it wasn't necessarily because I liked the characters. It wasn't because I liked how, man, they were basically metal benders from Legend of Korra. It wasn't any of that. It was basically the fact that this was a show that didn't lose its way. It didn't forget what it wanted to be. It was a show that was solely about about building up our main character, having him understand things, pretty much giving him some power every now and again. They tried to show you how he learned to control it, and most likely they did honestly kind of have. Basically, it wasn't one character outshining another, because when the show started, it was solely about Eren and Mikasa. Then after that, they kind of like showed all the other characters. However, at the end, they kind of began to show other character strengths and kind of slowly kind of showing us like, yeah, the main character, he kind of doesn't have to do everything all of the time and basically beat everything, solely because Eren, Eren's friend Armin, pretty much he was possibly a tactician. He was a tactical genius, knowing exactly what to do to take down the female Titan, and pretty much even kind of deduced like who it was, even though I know who it was way before anyone else did. But hey, so moving on to what I thought of all this anime. I loved it all. It was all pretty much good. Some of it had me up on the edge of my seat. Some of it I kind of knew from the tropes that other animes do. So this was my top 6 animes of this year. So what did you think of my list? Did you like it? Did you love it? Please tell me down there in the comments section. Please keep watching anime. Please keep playing those video games. And hey, I will see you guys in the new year. You have a great new year and stay safe. And I hope that you have a great time with your families when we transition over upon January 1st. So hey, I'm out. Have a happy new year.